Let's take a gander at what we've found so far about the B-21 Raider and why it's crucial to America's future. After years of anticipation, Northrop ultimately announced they will be revealing the world's newest stealth heavy bomber, the B-21 Raider. The B-21 is named in honor of Jimmy Doolittle's B-25 Raiders, which famously assailed Imperial Japan shortly after the events of Pearl Harbor during World War II. The B-21 builds on the success of its famous predecessor, the B-Spirit, which was also developed by Northrop. It is estimated that the technology in the B-21 is at least 2 generations ahead of the B-2, which is incredible since despite its over 2 decades of service, the B-2 remains one of the most stealthy platforms in the world. For the B-21, the USAF awarded the engineering contract to Northrop Grumman in 2015, and the critical design review was completed in 2018. The B-21 Raider will be unveiled to the world on December 2, 2022. Today, we'll take a look at what we know about the B-21 so far, the missions it could fly, why a flying wing is important for stealth, and what the Raider means for America's future. Based on what few details have been shared with the public, the B-21 is expected to be smaller in size than the B-2 and carry a smaller payload. For comparison, the B-2's payload is about 40,000 pounds, and current estimates show the B-21's payload to be about 30,000 pounds. At first glance, the payload sounds like a disadvantage. However, when you consider that the B-21 will be more stealthy given its advanced design and materials, this should allow it to penetrate deeper into contested airspace and hit targets with even greater precision as compared to today's bombers. Additionally, the Air Force is planning for some 100 B-21s, which is 5 times the number of B-South in service today. Having more B-21s means that they can be deployed globally and essentially placed within 2 hours striking distance of any target. This makes the B-21 an extremely effective deterrent. Indeed, the B-21 Raider will be a component of a larger family of systems for conventional long-range strike, including intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or ISR, electronic attack, communication, and other capabilities. The Raider is also designed to accommodate manned or unmanned operations. When it comes to weapons, the B-21 is referred to as dual-capable, meaning that it can employ either conventional or nuclear munitions. Possible payloads could include the B-61 variable-yield nuclear gravity bomb, the LRSO long-range standoff nuclear cruise missile, the LRASM long-range anti-ship missile, conventional free-fall bombs, and laser-guided bombs, as well as future weapons systems that are currently in development. As an example, the B-21 could also make use of directed energy weapons or lasers to strike or disable targets. Also, the Raider is said to use the same engines as those found on the F-35. These could be the currently in use Pratt & Whitney F135 series of engines or the under-development adaptive cycle engines such as GE's XA100, which is also planned for use in the F-35. If you'd like to learn more about the adaptive engines, I've made a video all about that. I'll leave a link in the description below. This use of common engines will help lower costs for both the B-21 and F-35, as well as improve mission capabilities for each platform. Another potential use of the B-21 is as a drone mothership, where the Raider could coordinate swarms of various size attritable drones to either set off enemy defenses, act as a forward fighter screen for the bomber, or serve as a networked node of strike aircraft. Northrop's announcement for the reveal of the B-21 is particularly exciting, as this will be only the 2nd time in history that a stealth bomber is unveiled to the public. Some of you may remember the first such event in November of 1988 when the B-Spirit was unveiled to the world. Easily the most successful flying wing ever, the B-2 followed in the footsteps of much earlier Northrop flying wing designs, beginning with the piston engine YB-35 and eventually the jet-powered YB-49. These 2 designs flew in the 1940s, well before stealth aircraft were even conceptualized. The incentive then for a flying wing design was to reduce parasitic drag and weight from non-lift generating components such as vertical tail surfaces. In theory, a flying wing could carry heavier payloads farther, faster, and cheaper than conventional designs. Although these early examples of flying wing bombers never entered production, during flight tests it was noticed that the aircraft had a small radar cross-section. In a few decades, this would play a role in the stealth characteristics of the B-2. More on that later. It's hard to imagine today, but in 1988, the rollout of the B-2 was essentially the world's first look at a stealth aircraft. Interestingly, the F-117 Nighthawk had entered service earlier, but really didn't garner public attention until the 1991 Gulf War. The impact that the B had was almost immediate. In fact, at its unveiling, then Secretary of the Air Force Edward Aldridge Jr. put it best, quote, "We are not just rolling out America's new strategic bomber, we are ushering in a new age of strategic deterrence," end quote. And while America up to this point has effectively held a monopoly on heavy stealth bombers, the lead is beginning to diminish. China and Russia are busy at work on their own stealth-heavy bombers, with China's far more likely entering into service before Russia's given recent events. Additionally, modern radar systems have begun to erode the advantage enjoyed by today's B-2 South and other low-observable aircraft. So, how does the B-21 help America regain their edge in stealth bomber technology? There are actually two key components that make this possible: airframe design and materials. Just like its predecessor, the B-21 will make use of a flying wing design. To understand why a flying wing is so effective for stealth, we need to take a quick look at the origins of stealth technology, which interestingly began in Russia. All the way back in 1971, a Soviet mathematician named, I'll do my best in the pronunciation here, Pyotr Umfensov, published a paper entitled Method of Edge Waves and the Physical Theory of Diffraction. The paper was largely ignored in Soviet Russia. However, the Air Force's Foreign Technology Division at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base translated the paper the same year it was released. A Lockheed Skunk Works engineer named Dennis Overholser, again I hope I pronounced his name correctly, developed a mathematical equation which applied the theories from the paper to calculate the radar cross-section, or RCS, of a three-dimensional object. This led directly to the F-117 Nighthawk, aka the Hopeless Diamond. The F-117 featured many jagged angles and surfaces to deflect or divert a radar signal, which was a direct result of the computational power available at the time, along with aerodynamic design compromises that were necessary. Interestingly, Northrop had participated in the competition to build the stealth fighter that would become the Nighthawk, but lost out to Lockheed. However, Northrop continued to work on stealth technology, and along with the lessons learned from the fighter competition and the increasing computational power of computers, developed the B-2 Spirit. This is one of the reasons that the B-2 is more sleek and curved as compared to the Nighthawk. The concept is the same, just at a much higher resolution. This is similar to how early digital images were pixelated or blocky, and now ultra-high-definition images appear lifelike. Both images use square pixels. The newer images simply are working with millions of much more smaller blocks to produce the image. As mentioned before, the B-2 is still one of the most stealthy aircraft in the sky today. In fact, despite being smaller in size and newer in design, both the F-22 Raptor and the F-35 Lightning are not as hard to detect as the B-2. This is particularly due to the fact that unlike bombers, fighter aircraft are expected to be able to perform extreme maneuvers if close-range combat aka dogfighting ensues. As a result, both the F-22 and F-35 make use of twin vertical tails, which help make extreme maneuvering possible but hinder their RCS. And while the design of the Lightning and Raptor worked to minimize this design penalty, the vertical tails nonetheless still degrade their RCS. This is why most sixth-generation concepts show a flying wing or tailless design. The idea being that with extremely advanced flight control systems, a vertical tail is not needed even for a highly maneuverable fighter. Getting back to the bombers, the B-21 improves on the lessons learned from the B-2. Just think of the advances in computational technology from 1988 till now. So, while outwardly similar looking as far as the flying wing design goes, the Raider is likely the most stealthy aircraft to date. Aside from the shape of the Raider, another advantage that the B-21 will incorporate is next-generation radar-absorbing materials, or RAM coatings. Today's RAM coatings are said to be rated to absorb about 70 to 80% of inbound radar waves. However, these coatings are incredibly expensive, require time-consuming efforts to apply, and are susceptible to damage from weather or even standard flight operations. Given these constraints, RAM coatings have essentially been undergoing constant research to both improve their durability as well as lower their costs. One such example of a newer RAM coating is the alternate high-frequency material, or AHFM, that have been applied to the B-2 bomber fleet since about 2004. This new material provided the same performance while lowering upkeep expenses. Ongoing enhancements to the coatings and coating systems have been employed in the fresh B-21 design. It's projected that today's newer coatings could absorb up to 90% of directed energy, be cheaper, and need much less time to implement and maintain.